Okay, hello and welcome to the video. Once again, my name is Wade Daniel Smith, and I am a black belt candidate in Isshinryu Karate, or at least I was when I was 20 years old. I mean, I can still defend myself and stuff like that, but I'm not like I was when I was 20 years old. But the point of this video is that if you know what you're doing, you don't have to be 20 years old to win a street self-defense situation or even win a pro fight. All right, so one of the concepts of Isshinryu that I like is Isshinryu is both a striking style and a grappling style. As a matter of fact, they teach around 800 total submission moves in Isshinryu karate. A lot of people think karate is just striking. Maybe they've seen point sparring and point knockdown or something in karate, and so they think karate is just striking. But actually, Isshinryu karate is just as much grappling, both standing and ground fighting, about 10% ground fighting and 90% standing grappling as much as it is striking. And we know how to train the perfect punch. I used to do 300 push-ups per day, not counting jump squats and everything else I was doing training. So, 2 sets of 50 push-ups a day and 10 sets of 20 push-ups per day on top of that. So that's what our striking training is, in addition to doing in the mirror your basics, every day. And bag work in cardio kickboxing class. So all of that is striking, but we're going to talk about submissions for half a moment. This is a revisit of Seisan Kata. Let me try to get the camera a little bit lower and see what I'm doing here. So in Seisan Kata, there's a point where you do a block, a double bone block like so, with this, your left hand, for just say, you also do it the right-handed way as well because it mirrors itself a couple times. But anyway, you block, you bone block. Double bone block is better than the Shotokan single bone block because this can break your own arm when you block. This is reinforced. All right. And then once you do the block, you open your hand and you grab your opponent's wrist or their gi. If they're wearing a gi or a long sleeve shirt, grab them by that because that's even better. So you're on the inside of their arm, and 9 times out of 10, in brown belt and black belt level fighting, whoever gets to the inside first wins. So you're on the inside of this arm, and you can control them, especially if you manage to get a front wrist lock by grabbing their hand. Um, Especially like in street self defense, you actually want to grab 2 or 3 fingers on the front wrist lock. In MMA, when it used to be legal, you still had to grab all 4 fingers for it to be legal. If you grabbed 2 or 3 fingers, that was called small joint manipulation, and you got disqualified. But now they've fully banned the front wrist lock. They've also banned the full wrist lock. At least you can't grab their gloves to put it on. You can use your arm and push down and pin their arm into a full wrist lock, but it's not going to hurt them as much. And then you're no longer grabbing the glove. The reverse wrist lock is banned because you have to grab the glove to do that. So those are 3 that are banned because they, quote, did not want the fights to be over in 10 seconds is their reasoning for banning those. It's not even a safety issue. They just didn't want people to win the fight in 10 seconds or less every time. So, and that's actually said so in the official World Unified MMA rules that the reason for those 3 blocks being banned is because they want the fights to last longer than 10 seconds. All right. So when you get this wrist lock on somebody, either you grab them by the wrist or you grab them by their hand and then you lock them with a wrist lock. 9 times out of 10, the wrist lock by itself won't submit somebody. You have to combine it with striking either a punch or a knee strike or a thrust kick to their body over and over, and then they'll tap out or cry like a baby or shout, "I quit," or whatever the case. But the wrist lock itself just sets up unblockable punches and kicks with your other hand or your leg. All right, so what am I trying to talk about here? I'm losing my train of thought. Uh, Dang it! I'm trying to remember what I was going to talk about. Okay, yeah. So whoever gets to the inside 9 times out of 10 is going to win in brown belt versus black belt. In MMA, the experienced grapplers go underhooks under the other person's arm because once they get to the inside, they can go down to a double leg takedown if they need to, or they can take underhooks and throw the person over their own shoulder for a takedown, or some combination of sweep easily. So once you get to the inside in grappling versus grappling, 9 times out of 10, you're going to win. And it's the same with combined striking, with combining grappling maneuvers with striking maneuvers. So if you ever saw the end of Karate Kid 2, when Daniel fights Chozen And after most of the fight sequence is over, they just start trading drum punches, and Daniel wins. And Daniel hits him every time because they didn't quite explain how that works. Daniel was getting to the, is expected to be believed that he was getting to the inside of Chozan every time and hitting him slightly before Chozan could counter him every time. And so Chozan missed every punch and Daniel landed every punch and won the end of the fight. So it wasn't quite portrayed exactly right, but 9 times out of 10, if you're trading punches, the person who's throwing slightly more straight punches will win, and the person who's on the inside is going to win. Now, realistically, that won't always work either. So sometimes you have to work the outside and work your angles with, 45-degree evades and parries and counter punches, which you very rarely see anybody in MMA that's trained to fight that style of 45-degree evade, parry, back fist to the face all at once, or this kind of stuff where you're fighting in 2 or 3 dimensions at once. You don't see that in MMA because they're not trained to fight that way, and I was trained to fight that way. So that's one of the reasons why I can literally beat 2 black belts in a handicap match. At least when I was 20 years old, I could probably still do it. So what you do is, let's say they're throwing a punch at you, you parry it and you windmill block it, and now I got their wrist, and I go to sidearm control here, and I can back fist them in the face over and over again, and they're kind of pinned like this, and I'm back fisting them in the side of the face over and over, knee strike them in the kidney over and over until they get organ damage or tap out or yell I quit or whatever. All right, you can, from here you can step on the back of their knee. Let me see if I can get the camera to show you what I'm talking about. You can step on the back of their knee and pin them to the ground, and there's a pressure point under the back of your knee where you can literally stand on, and the person will tap out and cry like a baby. So that stuff, I think that's even MMA legal, because what you do is you just step down on their leg, because you can kick the grounded opponent, you just can't kick them their head of a grounded opponent, and you can't stomp on their body. But I'm pretty sure you can just press down on the back of their knee and stand on the back of their knee. I think that is legal. So correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but I think that's legal. And all you have to do is stand on their knee. And then once you're standing on their knee, it's pretty easy to apply rear naked choke or real sleeper, or, some kind of, or a reverse neck breaker, reverse guillotine or something like that, and choke them right out. All right. Now, from that angle, it's kind of hard to get the traditional guillotine on, but you can get a reverse neck breaker or a reverse guillotine or a standing back breaker, something like that on them. And you never see standing back breaker or reverse neck breaker in MMA, but it is still legal. It's just usually the other fighter is competent enough not to give it up. So anyway, one of the clinches I wanted to discuss is a Muay Thai clinch. Once you get to the inside of your opponent's standing guard, you're going to grab them behind their head and neck and drag their head down into a rising knee strike. And this is pretty much an instant KO if it lands. If they don't block it, the only way they can block it is to get their hands up like this in front of their face, which even then it's going to knock them in the next week. But if you actually land that straight on their face in a clinch, they're going to be knocked straight out. I mean, there's just no way that they're going to survive, one hit from that, much less 2 or 3 hits that you could deliver within a split second. All right. What else did I want to discuss on this? Because, I wanted to discuss getting inside clinching. Of course, you can still do the Naihanchi clinch elbow once you get to the inside, one of the most devastating striking combos. Now, of course, the 12-6 elbow down to an opponent who's either on the ground or bent over or something like that, that's banned in MMA because it gets too much force and can cripple or kill somebody, especially if you hit them directly in the spine. So that one's banned. But for street self-defense, and, especially if you have multiple attackers, it's a good way to finish somebody off depending on what situation you find yourself in. What else? But you got to know when to fight from the inside and when to fight from the outside. If you think your opponent's a better grappler than you, you're not going to want to fight inside on them. You're going to want to stay away from them and work your angles. Pow, 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 hammer fist, jab from different angles. You're going to parry and keep their hands out of the way and jab them in the face. You're going to work your forward angle kick, which you hardly ever see in MMA, but it should be used. It's just hardly ever used. You're going to work your front sweep and front cross-hole stomp kick, your forward angle kick, your front teep and your side teep, so-called kicks that have come from Muay Thai. Isshinryu Karate teaches all of that. They just call it a different name, is all it is. They call it a teep. We just call it a snap kick or a thrust kick. So it's the same damn thing. So anyway, so yeah, if you think your opponent is a more experienced grappler than yourself, then you're not going to grapple with them. You're going to work the outside angles because they probably don't have as much striking experience if they're better at you than grappling. You know what I'm saying? So then you're going to try to outstrike them from the outside angles, work your 45-degree angle evades. If they try to shoot in on you, you're going to either knee strike them in the face or thrust kick them in the face. Let's say if they come from 6 feet away and just try to dive in at you like they used to do in MMA, that doesn't work against a good karate fighter because I'm just going to knee strike you in the face and knock you right out in response to that. What else? Yeah, working the outside angles with circle blocks and windmill blocks. Windmill blocks are almost always going to set up with some kind of submission striking maneuver. They're going to give you sidearm control over your opponent or inside front arm control over your opponent. And let's say if you got front arm control, then you're in palm heel and elbow strike range of their nose and jaw. And believe it or not, this is not a myth, although some people think it's a myth. A fully trained purple to brown belt fighter in Isshinryu Karate who does a good 200 to 300 push-ups per day and also practices on a bag, if they palm heel you at a 45-degree angle on your nose, you are dead. It's not just going to break your nose. It is true that it will absolutely put bone fragments in your brain. That has been proven with ballistics dummies, and it's also been proven in real life and death fights. It doesn't happen in MMA because, honest to God, most of them cannot throw a 1,000-pound punch. Most of them can only throw about a 500 to 700-pound punch. All right? So they're not even fully trained Okinawan purple or brown belt level fighters. Even though they're supposed to be, they're not. I saw John Jones try to max out the punching machine, and he could barely do 450 pounds on the punching machine. And I hadn't practiced in 20 years and went way over 600 on my first punch. So, you know, I punched literally 50% harder than John Jones and haven't practiced in 20 years. I used to have well over 1,000-pound punch. But anyway, that's the thing about inside fighting versus outside fighting. You're not going to grapple with somebody that you think is a better grappler than yourself. And like, why did Sean Strickland get beat by Dricus du Plessis after he beat Israel Adesanya at striking? So what happened to Sean Strickland that he got beat by Dricus du Plessis? Number one thing is, the reason he beat Israel Adesanya is because he worked both a front snap kick off the front foot and a front thrust kick off the back foot several times at key moments in that fight. I mean, he didn't go around throwing them haphazardly, but at key moments when it mattered, he worked the front snap kick and the front thrust kick. That the only other fighter in the whole league that does that is Kamaru Usman, that works with a good front snap kick and front thrust kick anymore. All right? So he fought Israel Adesanya with a straight punch, straight kick style of fighting, and he won by outstriking supposedly one of the best kickboxers in the history of the world. All right. What happened when he fought Dricus du Plessis? Because I watched the whole match. For some reason, he forgot to use straight kicks. They work against grapplers. They're your best weapon against grapplers because you keep them well outside of grappling range. Understand? You don't want him in arm's length. If he's an expert wrestler or an expert black belt jiu-jitsu practitioner, you don't want him in arm's range. You're going to kick him with your front snap kick as often as you can because it's your fastest kick and it's also your longest reaching weapon. All right? So that he hardly even threw any snap kicks in the fight against Dricus du Plessis, and he might have thrown one thrust kick in the whole fight. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's even more important against a good grappler than it is against another good striker because you want him at maximum range the whole time to make sure he can't grab you. But that's why he got beat by Dricus du Plessis, even though he pretty much won the first round against Israel Adesanya at 10-8, which I got in an argument with people, but he hit Israel Adesanya 20-some-odd unanswered times. That's a 10-8 round. But anyway, but that's why he beat Israel Adesanya but got beat by Dricus du Plessis is he stopped working his snap kick and thrust kick. All right? And I don't know why. He just had a brain freeze or something. Because he's probably the best fighter in the league. But all right, that's the end of the video. I got a little off topic, but I covered the inside clinching and the main things that I wanted to touch base on. Thank you very much if anyone watches this.